All right, we'll call this meeting to order, Wednesday, August 28th. This is the Zoning Board of Appeals. Need to do our roll call initially. I'm Mark Jennings. I'll be the chairperson of the Zoning Board of Appeals.
Julie Jelk.
Mark Redding.
Mike Volkman.
Are we using the microphones? We can't hear you.
Okay. Just introduce yourself.
Oh, I'm the city attorney, Phil Helgeson.
And I'm Jane Brand, city administrator.
All right. Jane, do you want to go ahead and announce the proceedings?
Sure. All right. So the role of the board, the City of Prescott Zoning Board of Appeals is an appellate board required by state law in any municipality that has adopted zoning ordinances. The board does not have the authority to amend or repeal any provisions of the zoning ordinance. Its authority is a limit to appeals regarding interpretation of ordinances, provisions, considerations of variances, and considerations of conditional uses. The board functions like a court. Its purpose is to give a full and fair hearing to any person whose property interests are affected by these matters. Its job is to apply the zoning variance and appropriate legal standards to the facts of each case. The board meeting and public hearings are open to the board, and a tape copy is being made of this proceedings. So it's also going out live, and we are having it transcribed in case there is an appeals. The expiration and revocation of the permission of the development. Any permission to develop granted by a decision of the board must be authorized by obtaining the necessary building, zoning, and other permits. Construction must be substantially completed within 36 months of the date of the board's decision. This period will be extended if a court order or operation of law postpones the final decision and may be extended for other good cause. Appeal of the board's decisions. A decision of the board may be appealed by commencing any action in circuit court for this county within 30 days after the date of filing this decision in the office of the board. An applicant who commences construction prior to the expiration date of this appeal period assumes the risk of having the board decision overturned. The orders of the hearing. Each hearing will be opened by reading the application or appeal, the applicant or appellant's statement, and the zoning department report, if any, will each be followed by related board questions. Witness testimony from those who have submitted appearance slips and alternating amongst those in favor, those opposed, and those appearing to provide information and related board questions are next, followed by responses from the applicant and the zoning department and any remaining board questions. If the board has all the necessary facts, it will close the record, deliberate, and decide the matter in open session before proceeding to the next hearing. Written decisions based on the discussion of the board and evidence in the record will be filed in the office of the board and mailed to the parties involved as soon as practical. Minutes of the board meetings and decisions are available at the zoning department, which is at City Hall. So the zoning board members have all been made aware that they must be impartial. Wisconsin case law requires that zoning board members be impartial. That is free of bias and conflicts of interest. Zoning decisions are particularly vulnerable to concerns about impartiality because decision makers are local residents with a number of social and economic ties to the community. However, it's important to point out that as zoning board member, your opinions are specific local regulations or zoning in general do not necessarily disqualify you from making this decision. A person's opinion or stance, such as pro-growth or anti-growth, should not be influenced by your decision. Bias related to the applicant's ethnicity, gender, or religion is also inappropriate. It is reminded as part of this hearing, you will not take into consideration items which are of the school board to address. If you feel you cannot be impartial, please recuse yourself from this hearing. Okay, instructions to the witnesses. Anyone wishing to speak should complete an appearance slip and should be delivered to myself. You must be recognized by the board chair in order to speak, and please address your comments and questions to the chair and state your name and your place of residence, whether you represent a group or association, your qualifications to speak on this matter or the source of your information, and whether you oppose, favor, or are only providing information in this matter and your concerns. Please confine your testimony to facts related to the case at hand and avoid repetitive testimony. Issues regarding the placement of students and the sale of the school will be addressed by the school board. You're going to be limited to 5 minutes. We're going to use the rules of decorum that will affect this meeting. Please keep your small talk from the audience down, as a transcriber is here to make a transcription of this meeting. No applause, no outbursts from the audience. The chairperson runs this board. If the chair feels that the information is not pertinent to the variance application, he may stop your comments. The chairperson has the right to ask someone to leave the meeting for inappropriate behavior.
Okay, I think our next step in this process, we need to ask a representative of the school district to present their variance request.
And I'll do just a quick, you can step over, Rick, but I'll just do a quick overview. So the application was received, and with the application, we were required to notify all the adjoining property owners, and they were sent notices. 33 letters were mailed, and it was published in the paper twice on, I believe it was the 15th and the 22nd, so.
All right. Well, good evening, Chairperson Jennings, Julie, Mark, and Mike. My name is Rick Spicuzza. I'm the superintendent of the Prescott Public Schools, the lead administrator, and I am here on behalf representing the Prescott Public School District. Tonight, the Prescott Zoning Board of Appeals review a variance application to allow for a potential PUD, planned unit development, that would be heard on September 3rd if this variance is allowed. As owner of the property, the school district signed and did submit a completed application to the city for consideration on August 8th. All paperwork and payments have been completed by Commonwealth. In accordance with the public statement on the city's website, any developer looking at any type of development in the city is required to meet with city staff to determine what approvals will be needed for a proposed project. I trust Jane and Kevin. That's why we're in the room here tonight. In public, for public input, public review, and public critique. As further noted in the same public statement on the city's website, the city is required to bring all proposals before the appropriate commission, board, or council. If the city does not bring forward an application, the city can find themselves in legal action brought forward by the applicant. The developer needs to know and understand the decisions of their application before they spend time, money on the proposed project. Conversely, as the superintendent of the Prescott Public Schools, I have a responsibility to bring to our school board options that have been vetted so that we can best leverage finite resources for our students, our staff, and for our community. Before the school board can even consider a potential sale of this property, the developer needs to make a formal purchase offer. It has not happened. It is not a good use or time of the taxpayers' money for a school board to commit until it is confirmed one way or the other that the middle school property is legally situated for the potential planned unit development. Understand that the decision tonight on the variance, and if it moves forward for zoning, does not in any way bind the school board for a sale. It does allow, however, for a responsible and thoughtful discussion to begin based on now known or fixed factors rather than random speculation or possibilities. This proposal has the possibility to address common concerns that I hear as a district administrator attempting to recruit and retain staff within Prescott School District, creating options for housing that is affordable, and creating a positive impact on the tax base by converting the middle school into a tax-generating building. Understand that the city's choice on a variance and zoning, if approved, again, does not commit the school board to the sale, no letter of intent, no MUA or MUO, No offer has been presented to the district or school board, and no purchase agreement exists. This is merely our first step in public to engage and find out if we move forward. It allows the school board to determine if a decision like this fits within its long-term facility and financial plan. It now would have the information available. Questions like placement of where students would go, tax input, school finances will all be part of that process. And trust that as superintendent and as the school board, those processes are in place. We will work through those questions and also understand that Commonwealth, if approved, still must submit to the WHDA board. A decision on that wouldn't even become final until spring of 2020. The soonest the impact would have on our students, staff, or families would be fall 2021, 24 months from today. What are we asking? We are asking for the ability of the school board to meet an identified community need and determine if the proposal might, I state might, assist our district's long-term facility and financial plans. Further, the developer is offering to maintain a prize structure, one that is historically relevant within the Prescott community and is willing to invest in our community for future community needs, housing that is affordable. We know that as a city, it has struggled with the recent developments coming to fruition or even taking place around development. The old hospital stands vacant from 1992. Steamboat Inn, even with the TIF support, remains vacant. And 2 assisted living projects that were guaranteed to have a race to the shovel have gone poof. It's unclear whether or not this proposal will go. However, I do believe that the journey does begin with the first step. We are here tonight to allow the public vetting of a developer, Commonwealth, who has a track record of revitalizing historic school buildings into housing that is affordable. I think it's only fair that we remain objective, allow Commonwealth to share its vision for this community. I encourage this hearing to allow the September 3rd meeting and to allow this variance to move forward and provide the community an ability to weigh in on the proposal in open, not in real or electronic closed communities, but as a community, those communities rarely flourish. Rather, in open dialogue, we can flourish. Tonight, you begin that vetting of Commonwealth. That would like to share its vision for the community. I think the city and school district would like to hear and see what that proposal might look like. We encourage this variance to go forward and be fair and equitable in your discernment. I conclude by passing to Commonwealth, is that accurate, Jane? Mm-hmm. The opportunity to present and answer the questions that the board may have. Thank you for your time. And I'm introducing Kevin McDonald with Commonwealth.
Thanks, Rick. All right. As Rick said, my name's Kevin McDonald. I'm Vice President of Development for the Commonwealth Companies. I'm excited to be here today to share our development concept for the current middle school. As Rick indicated, this is a preliminary development concept. We're excited to engage the community, and we're at the early stages here, and this is a step that needs to be made in order to see if we can even get the property under contract and then continue the development process. So, all right, so briefly, I'm going to try to cover who we are, who's Commonwealth, touch on housing tax credits and how they're utilized, go over our development concept, cover a little bit of planning context, show a few example historic schools that we've developed, and then cover a few common questions, and then we'll open it up for discussion, I believe. So Commonwealth was started in 2001 out of Fond du Lac, Wisconsin. Today we've grown to be the 7th ranked affordable housing developer in the country. We went through a recent merger, and now we have kind of a headquarters number 2 in the Madison area, technically in Middleton, Wisconsin, where I work out of. We're a vertically integrated affordable housing developer. So we have in-house construction and property management at most of our properties. Is all of our properties in Wisconsin we do manage in-house, but some of the out-of-state properties where we only have a few projects, we don't always manage those ourselves in-house. But as a construction company locally, I always like to point out it will mean a good number of local construction jobs. We have a few carpenters and painters on staff, but especially for a project this far away from Fond du Lac, those carpenters or painters are typically not working on a project like this. And then on the property management side, our goal is to always have an on-site property manager, and we do full criminal and financial background checks. So to date, just cover a little bit about our history. We've completed just under 100 affordable housing projects across the country. We're in 14 states, but the vast majority, we're probably still about 90% of our, probably about actually 60% of our projects that we've completed are in Wisconsin. So still a good portion of what we've done has been in Wisconsin. We work on a variety of different types of projects, new construction, acquisition, rehab of existing apartments, but we have a big focus on historic preservation, which is what we'd be proposing for the middle school. We're a long-term partner in the communities that we've developed. We've never sold a property that we've developed. When we work in a property, we want to be there for a long term and have a great relationship with the community, so that when we come into a community like Prescott, when they call and check in with other communities, that we get great reviews. So moving on into the how housing tax credits work, and just try to, I know there's been a lot of speculation, so wanted to clear up what housing tax credits are, how the program works, and give a brief overview on that. So as Wisconsin Housing and Economic Development Authority defines it, the housing tax credit program is a program for residents whose incomes are at or below 80% of the county median income, and it is not subsidized public housing, which I know is what much of the speculation has been. The project that we would likely be, the housing tax credit program that we would likely be applying for is the 9% competitive housing tax credit program, and that would require all the units to be at 60% or less than the county median income instead of the 80%. There is another program that allows you to go up to 80%. So the program is administered by Wisconsin Housing and Economic Development Authority to support communities across the state. Wisconsin Housing and Economic Development Authority, otherwise known as WHEDA, allocates projects tax credits based on a scoring criteria, and it's a highly competitive process. So only the best of the best projects are selected. So how the program works is investors purchase the tax credits to provide an equity investment into the project, and what that allows is for high quality of construction to still be completed while reducing the first mortgage that's on the property, which allows the development to commit to long-term affordability, which is a 30-year commitment, keeping the development affordable. One of the unique parts about the program is that we're able to provide local employer preferences to help communities grow their workforce and expand the local economy. And there's a lot of employers that we think would be great to partner with locally in order to give a preference for their employees to live within the development. I touched a little bit on the scoring that WIDA has. The Prescott area is a targeted census tract by the state and WIDA. Based on median income, low unemployment rate, and the great school district, the area scores very well. In addition, the fact that the development would be utilizing historic tax credits also weighs very heavily on the scoring, allowing for the project to score very well based on the scoring criteria. Next, here's an example of what in Pierce County, what the 60% county median income limits would be. So for a one-person household, the 60% income limit would be $42,000, and for a five-person household, the 60% county median income is just under $65,000. So those equate, the five-person household equates to an hourly wage of about $31 an hour, and the one-person household would be about a $20 an hour wage. And then, so moving down to the rent limits, in Pierce County are actually quite high. The 60% one-bedroom is just over $1,100. The two-bedroom is just over $1,300. And the three-bedroom rent limit is just over $1,500. So we're projecting the one-bedroom rents and the 60% units to be closer to $800. The two-bedroom rents would be closer to $900, and the three-bedroom rents would be closer to $1,100. So next, moving on to a few of the example employers locally, what they're paying and example occupations that would qualify to live in the units. So UNFI, currently they're paying drivers and their warehouse employees a range of $16 to $22 an hour. The city of Prescott has a number of city employees that would qualify, police officers, which I believe also includes the parking attendants. Parking police officers are paid between $15 to $32 an hour. Administrative assistants and clerks are in the range of about $20 an hour. There's a number of hourly employees that are below the $28 an hour. I believe most of them are actually even below $20 an hour. The school district is another great example, as Rick alluded to. Starting teacher salary for the district is $37,000 or $18 an hour. And so across the country, there's a really huge need, especially for school teachers with affordable housing. There are developments across the country that are 100% focused on just serving school teachers. And so that is a really huge need, somewhat of a coincidence. But and then Diversified Manufacturing Corporation, their production and skilled laborers are making in between $14.50 to $20 an hour. There's a number of other examples. Seniors make up about 25% of our entire portfolio in developments like this that are on a fixed income. They obviously qualify very easily for the units. Other examples include medical assistants. We have a lot of retail employees, retail managers, cashiers. So next is a brief overview on the development concept. We'd be preserving the middle school as is. We wouldn't be adding anything new onto it. It would really be preserving the existing historic integrity of the building. There might be some areas where we add a few new windows on kind of what the historic preservation office would call the non-primary facades. So we wouldn't be able to alter kind of like the main entrance area. It would be kind of some of the areas that are to the west, kind of where the gym area is, where we may look to add a few windows all of our plans would be approved by the Historic Preservation Office and the National Park Service. We work with a consultant, McRossi Historic Advisors, to make sure that we're meeting the historic preservation requirements. And typically we would certainly be in preserving chalkboards, existing woodwork, cabinetry within the units, and they become a unique feature within someone's apartment unit. We have a mix of 1, 2, and 3 bedroom units, an on-site property management office, exercise room, resident storage lockers, and a community room for the residents. Just a little planning context. I'm sure most of you are aware where the school is located, but as you can see, we're just a few blocks from the historic downtown corridor, and then to the west is the church. There's the Hollister Mansion is on the same block, and then we're surrounded by the park to the north, and then residential to the south and the east. So the location is really an ideal location for apartments with great walkability to the many amenities that surround the property. And we have heard of the great need for affordable housing in the community. So looking forward to how we look at the land development process. So the first piece is to always start at the comprehensive plan that guides if the development is a fit. Then we look at the zoning code, and then finally it moves on to the site plan and formal design approvals much further down the road. So looking at the comprehensive plan, the 9-page housing section, affordable housing is identified as a need multiple times throughout the document. I think affordable housing is referenced somewhere around 16 times in that document. And then it also identifies goals of supporting and encouraging universal home design to accommodate people of all ages and abilities. So that would be providing visitable units. Our development would be 100% visitable, and then we'd have 20% of the units would have ADA accessibility features in the units. Finally, another goal is to support residents to utilize programs for improving the energy efficiency of their home. So all of the housing units that we'd be developing would be Wisconsin Green Built Home certified, which would require us to utilize energy efficient appliances, energy efficient furnaces, and things like that. We'd also be looking to utilize solar if it's deemed to be financially feasible for the project. So in terms of the comprehensive plan on the land use side, a number of the objectives that are mentioned, increasing housing diversity, efficiency, promoting alternative energy options, not so much promoting small market farms and the local food economy, but you could make an argument that promoting more higher density apartments near the downtown would help to support the local food economy. Increasing transportation options, it would certainly increase the walkability of the community, promote a diversified local economy, and create a healthy community. Other goals of the land use plan for the comprehensive plan were to provide a variety of housing options for people of all ages, physical abilities, and incomes, identify locations for redevelopment or infill development for residential dwellings, and support mixed-use development in the downtown to create a mix of residential and commercial businesses in a safe walkable setting. So again, today we're here for just the variance piece. If the variance were to be approved, we would then move on to the public hearing piece for the zoning and the more detailed review of the actual development plan and the PUD that would be required. And then after that would become the site plan and design that would be much further down the road. So in terms of the variance, I think Rick kind of touched on a lot of this. Really what the variance would allow the school district to do is to determine if there are other allowable uses for the school, if in fact the school board would decide that they would want to vacate the middle school and move forward with an alternative development option for the property. The decision on the variance, I believe, will set forward some precedent tonight because it will have to be taken into consideration for all future redevelopment proposals and other variance requests that may come forward. And then moving on to the specific case of why the middle school is a good fit for having a variance. Historic adaptive reuse school redevelopments are really one of the few property types that satisfy the tests needed for meeting the unnecessary hardship, unique property conditions, and that don't cause harm to the public interest. Being a historic school, you're obviously very limited in what you can do with the property, and without a variance, it's likely that no other use could be considered within the school and be a productive use that I believe satisfy the zoning code ordinance that the community has. With the exception of if the middle school is actually torn down, then you could probably satisfy the zoning ordinance. So other important facts are there definitely has been clearly established standards for approving variances to allow for redevelopment of similar schools across the state. And then next steps would be the PUD meeting in the next few weeks, and then we'd be seeking a construction approval of the plans. I want to make that clear, in the summer of 2020. As Rick stated, the school would not be vacating until the summer of 2021. So example, historic schools, we've done about 10 different projects, mostly in Wisconsin. I invite any of you to come out and visit any of them. They've really all turned out great. There's nothing like going to one of our grand openings for a development like this and seeing all the alumni come through and be so excited to see the unique features that have been preserved and go visit their old classrooms. And I think this project is maybe a little bit less of touchy-feely. Oftentimes when we're going in, the properties have been vacant and blighted, and but obviously that is not the case with this one. The school is in great shape. So here's some before and after pictures of some of the transformations that we've seen. So the pictures on the top left and the top right are a development that we did in Mandan, North Dakota. It's called Historic Apartments on 4th. And then the two on the top in the middle is a before and after of a project that we completed in Fond du Lac. That one was actually two separate schools. This picture is of the St. Joe's School, and we also redeveloped the St. Mary's School at the same time. And that project's known as Parish School Apartments. And then on the bottom left and bottom right, the development is known as Historic Lincoln School, and that one is in Shawano, Wisconsin. So a few common questions that we get. How will property values be impacted? The vast majority of studies show that there is really no impact, positively or negatively, is the conclusion. And then how will the development affect traffic? We will have to work with the city engineering group to review the development and make any necessary changes to minimize the impact and ensure that safety is maintained. And then the other important piece I think to note is that transitioning from a school to a residential use will be a less intensive use and should actually help to smooth out the flow of traffic as residents leave at different times of day. I believe there's about 350 students currently in the school, and we'd have 40 households that should probably be under 100 total residents. So it should be significantly reduced traffic. That's all I have. Is there any questions? I'm happy to answer.
Any questions from the board? Mike, do you have any specific questions?
No question.
Kevin, you cite that you guys have examples of variances for similar projects. Could you give us specifics?
I know the last project that we did get a variance on for a similar project was Lawler School Lofts in Prairie du Chien.
Are any of your examples similar demographics to Prescott
Yeah.
in terms of population, bedroom community?
Into bedroom community.
This is a bedroom community to the Twin Cities, and that's commonly known. And population size, I mean, are the schools that you've done, are they in towns similar in population size to Prescott?
Yeah, so Berlin, Wisconsin is definitely similar population size. I believe, Prairie du Chien is not far off. I don't have a population size in front of me, but Schofield's probably somewhat of a similar size. It's basically a suburb of Wausau, though, which is obviously larger. The community sizes are, I'd say, consistent in terms of bedroom communities. I don't know, West Bend has maybe somewhat of a similar commuting pattern.
Okay, thank you. All right, I think as a next step, I'll need to motion and open this for public hearing. Someone want a motion?
Motion to open it up to public hearing?
I second the motion.
Okay, we will now move to open to the public hearing. We'll go in order on the sheets that have been submitted.
He wants to talk first.
Yeah, I'll change it.
Yeah, kind of put it in a little bit of order.
All right. So, as we go forward, we want to keep this to facts or information. Please be professional in this as well. We're all here together. We're all part of this community. And I apologize in advance if I screw up when I pronounce your name. I'm probably going to do that right away. So first up, would Catherine Moon Kitchen? Yes, please.
just do a quick vote. Hang on just a second. Oh, Catherine, I'll get that out of the way. Is this yours? Oh, I'll get it out of the way.
Yeah, we already opened the public hearing. We did the motion.
All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Sorry about that. Please go ahead, Catherine.
Well, I'll just take this time. Well, I guess I need to be in the room. Yeah, I'm gonna get out of the way. Thank you. Thank you. Great. Thank you. Okay, my name is Catherine Munkitrick. I'm an attorney in River Falls. I've practiced in this area for longer than I like to admit, about 30 years, and my primary area of practice is municipal law. I represent municipalities in this area. I represent the city of Hudson. I represent some towns in Pierce County and St. Croix County. So frankly, usually I'm on your side of the bench rather than being on this side of the bench. But I'm here tonight on behalf of a group of concerned citizens, citizens who live in the area and who are concerned both about the zoning and the process and the school. But I am going to limit my comments to the process that we're in. And I think it's very important for the board to recognize that it's not, the issue tonight is not whether this type of project will benefit the city, bring jobs, do any of that was covered in the presentation. It's really only to decide whether the applicant has met its burden under the law for a variance in the PUD district. That's the only thing that's in front of you, and there's legal definitions that the board needs to follow in deciding whether they have met their burden. And the burden of proof is on the applicant. A variance is a variation from the minimum requirements of the zoning district, and the board is authorized to issue a variance if it meets various requirements. The overall requirements, kind of the umbrella, is that it will not be contrary to the public interest, that there's special conditions affecting this property, whereby a literal enforcement of the ordinance will result in practical difficulty or unnecessary hardship. You heard a little about that. You didn't hear any definitions or any explanation really as to why there is a hardship here. But that's one of the key definitions. And most importantly for you is that the issuance of the variance or granting the variance wouldn't be contrary to the spirit or intent or purpose of the zoning ordinance. So in this case, we have to look at what is the purpose of the zoning ordinance, and they are specifically asking to be rezoned to a planned unit development. And your own ordinance says the purpose behind the planned unit development district is to accommodate integrated mixed land uses and to a strong commitment to open space and innovative lot divisions, lot sizes, and so forth. So integrated mixed land uses, innovative lot sizes, and strong commitment to open space. Those are the three requirements or the purposes of your PUD zoning classification. So you need to keep that in mind in deciding whether a variance is appropriate. What the applicant has requested is a variance from the minimum area size for any PUD of 3 acres. And I would submit that that is a key component of the planned unit development district, because the planned unit development district is designed to promote a strong commitment to open space, mixed land uses, and a strong commitment to open space. This application, frankly, does not propose integrated mixed land uses. Really, when it comes down to it, they are asking to convert a school building into a multi-unit residential facility, a multi-family apartment building. That's really what they're proposing. I didn't hear any other uses that they want to use that property for. The community room is typical in a multi-family building. Exercise room is typical. Those are all typical uses related to a multi-family apartment building. So that's what you're looking for, or looking at, is really a proposal to convert a building into a multi-family apartment building. No integrated mixed uses. The other piece of it is strong commitment, and that's language right out of your ordinance, to open space. If you looked at that site plan, you could see there's very little open space on that property. Your ordinance requires in a PUD a minimum of 30% of the parcel needs to be committed to usable open space. Usable open space is also defined in your ordinance as, give me a minute, lands used for intensive residential recreational use, such as picnicking, hiking, playgrounds, ball fields, etc., where recreational activities can occur. We have looked at the site plan and done an analysis of the square footage and the ratio of usable, even arguably usable open space to the building space. And
Okay.
If you guys are okay.
Okay, please continue.
Thank you, I appreciate it. I am representing several people,
Yes,
so
understood.
thank you. So that's an important piece of the PUD idea, that there's going to be open space, that the parcel is going to contain a significant, at least 30% open space. This parcel does not contain that, and it's got to be usable open space. It can't just be bits and pieces surrounding the building, like setback areas or sidewalks, that sort of thing. It has to be where significant recreational activity can occur. That doesn't exist here. And in fact, they haven't even requested a variance for that. So I don't really understand why they haven't, but the situation is that their proposal does not meet that requirement. What they've asked for is a variance so they can develop this. It's approximately acres. I was thinking square feet, acres. The minimum is 3. Like I said, open space is key in a PUD, and that's actually a required use, if you will, to leave property as open space, and that's not being done. So when you look at just the umbrella requirements, the basic requirements of a variance, you cannot violate the spirit or intent or purpose of the ordinance. This project plain and simply does. It doesn't fit within a PUD. There could be an application for another zoning, rezoning for a different district, for example, multifamily or something like that, but not PUD. It doesn't meet the purpose of the PUD district. Furthermore, it doesn't meet the requirements of undue hardship. Since the 3 acres is so key to the proper use of a PUD, it's really a use variance, in my opinion, that they're requiring. And to get a use variance, the applicant has to show that without a variance, they would have no reasonable use of their property. That's just not the case. That building can be repurposed and reused for a variety of things. They're proposing a multifamily. Well, they could submit a rezoning application for multifamily. Then they wouldn't have these open space requirements. That could be used for a community center, professional office buildings. Those are things that are permitted as conditional or special uses in a number of your zoning districts, R1, R2, and R3. So there is the fact that it's a school building being repurposed is not a undue hardship. They still have many uses they can make of that building. So I would say that they have not met their burden to show that they have no reasonable use of the property without the variance. I'm trying to go quickly. I think they said that the property is already developed. The other consideration is they've got to have some condition of their property that's unique to that property. And their application cited, well, there's a building on it. Most properties in this city have buildings on them. That is not unique to this property. And if that were a unique condition, everyone would be coming here for a variance. Hardship, they own a property with a building on it. That's just the way it is. They can either choose to raise the building, they can choose to repurpose it. But the use they're proposing does not fit in within your PUD. And the danger, and one thing they pointed out in their presentation is your decision on this will set a precedence. And if you grant a variance in this situation where you're allowing someone to be zoned or to get a variance and develop as a PUD for a piece of property that's a little more than half the size of your requirements and that does not have any real usable open space, you're setting a precedence. And you're really, especially in terms of your PUD district, you're pretty much undermining the entire purpose of the PUD district. And that you just don't want to do and you cannot do under the law. You are supposed to be looking at the spirit and purpose of that PUD district, and this just doesn't meet it. Furthermore, they have other avenues they can go. There's no reason to zone it as a PUD. I think I've covered most of it. I do have, they provided really very little in their application. They didn't provide square footage. But we have, and I think it might be helpful for you, we've put together a map that shows the building and the parking stalls, and then kind of does the square footage of the possibly usable, and I would argue minimally usable at best, open space, and it ends up to be about 15%. And if you're interested in looking at that, I'm happy to provide it. It's an effort to show you that this really does not meet the purpose of the PUD, and you should deny the variance. I'm happy to answer questions. I just think it's very important that you stay focused on what your role here is and how important your decision is to the administration of the ordinance now and in the future.
Thank you. Any questions?
No.
Could I just submit it into the record and give it to Jane, the map? Would that be permissible?
Please go ahead. Okay, next, Thomas Langenfeld.
I knew you'd pull my name out of the hat right after she spoke. It's a tough act to follow. Wonderfully put. Just a couple of things. I think that most people here tonight are against it. I think that would be fair to say. I think what you're trying to do is to conversely add people to the to the community, and then at the same time shorten the amount of space available for the children that they want to get into the community. Because on paperwork, it's the school district is overbuilt. Look, these guys are not here doing us a favor, okay? They're not doing us a favor. I remember Mike Black came to town and Royal Oaks Realty, and they were going to do us a favor and all this kind of good stuff, and they took the money and ran, and they blew the real estate market out of the market, you know, and it just gutted everything, and it took us 10 years to recover from it. They're not going to do us a favor. They're businessmen, they're in the business. How much is it going to cost you to do it? What's your profit margin? Did anybody ask that? If you want to build apartment complexes in Prescott, you can do it. There's places to do it. I've done it. Your numbers for lower income people, if you take a $200,000 house in the city of Prescott, your property taxes will be $5,500. It's going to cost you $1,000 a year for insurance. That runs a little bit over $500-600 a month. Your cost is per thousand at 4% on a 30-year loan is $477 per thousand. If you're low income, it means you don't have much for a down payment at all. So you take $477 per thousand, times that by 190, and you're going to come out to a pretty good chunk of change, over $1,100, as I think it is anyhow. So a guy's making $15 an hour. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. So these PUDs that you're coming up with are just little tricks of the trade in order to fulfill something that maybe it just doesn't work, and if they did work, the natural form of things would really go over. I urge you to think about the fact that the middle school has been here forever as an educational purpose. It's been redone. It's a unique building. Our grandchildren would love to be in that building. And I think it's something that should be kept that way. The space, it doesn't work. The spaces doesn't work. You got another PUD coming up later on, and that doesn't work either. The numbers don't work. And so I just urge you to, that's why they put these things together, right? When you're talking $900, was it $900 for a one-bedroom apartment? Is that what it was? Excuse me, $800 right now? Do you know what the current rent is for a two-bedroom apartment in Prescott right now with a garage? Have you checked?
Yeah.
Who'd you check? You didn't check with me. Did you? No, do you know what I'm getting? I have two-bedroom apartments with a garage.
We need to keep
they're
this
decent. I understand, but just you know what I'm getting from rent a month? $675.
Okay. Let's keep
That's
this.
low income, helpful. I get it. So I know the 5 minutes is up, and I thank you for that. But I would ask you to just stop it now. Just stop it now, because if you don't stop it now, it never goes away. Believe me, it never ever goes away. Stop it now.
Thank you. Next we have A.Z. Snyder. Sorry if I got that wrong.
No, you actually got it right. Good evening, everyone. My name is A.Z. Snyder, and I am the Health Officer and Public Health Director for Pierce County. I want to be clear that I have absolutely no position on this particular issue. I am not here to lobby for a decision either way, but I do think it's important that the Public Health Department offer some information about the connection between affordable housing and health for the board members to consider, since public interest is a factor. We all want families to live in healthy, safe housing that's within their budget. And working families of all different shapes and sizes struggle every day in Pierce County to find affordable housing in great communities like Prescott. We at the Health Department are constantly hearing about the lack of availability of affordable, quality housing in our communities. So why is this continuing to be a problem in our area? From 2010 to 2016, the percent of households earning more than the federal poverty level, but less than the basic cost of living in the county, has increased from 23% to 32% of all households. This means that 1 in 3 households, they're working in this county, they're above the poverty level, but they don't make enough to make basic living expenses. The quality, cost, and location of our housing has a huge impact on our health. Low quality housing, meaning poor air circulation, contaminated water, or substandard building materials, can lead to lead poisoning, blue baby syndrome, and childhood asthma. High cost of housing means that working families have to choose between going to the doctor, buying healthy foods, spending money on childcare, or keeping a roof over their heads. We also know that people who are severely cost burdened by rental costs are 23% more likely to face issues purchasing food. We know that people who are behind in their rent or mortgage payments are more likely to struggle purchasing food or go without prescription medications. It also completely makes sense that stress associated with the lack of stable, affordable housing can worsen both physical and mental health issues. Lastly, where you live has a huge impact on your opportunity to be healthy. Affordable housing is simply not enough. We need affordable housing in thriving communities like Prescott. We know that people who live in neighborhoods with access to healthy foods and availability for safe spaces to exercise have better health outcomes. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next we have Kevin Holton.
Good evening, Kevin Holton. I'm at 486 Court Street South. I'm not here representing any group. I think I just have some concerns about the park that's across the street, situated between Elm and Court Street. With the density of the tenants or occupants in the property and the amount of parking that might be available at that site, I have just some concerns around what there will be from a parking on the street. Is there going to be impacts with cars lined up on the street? Are there going to be other items with regards to the park that have to be considered as part of this project? So I don't have anything really to opine on. I just want to make sure that that's part of the discussion as far as the impact, not only to the residents around, but to the open space that's across the street. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, next, Diane House.
I'm Diane House. I live at 1295 Ash Street. I've been a taxpayer for many years. I was actually born at the hospital in this town. Makes me kind of old, but that's what it is. I was on the Board of Appeals for 15 years in this city. I was on the city council for a number of years too. And I know it's tough sitting up there. There's a lot that goes on and a lot that's said, and everybody wants something, but you have to look at it impartially. I'm sure you've all been given the Board of Appeals handbook that's put out by the state of Wisconsin, and I hope you're aware and are familiar with it. It gives you a guideline of what you can and can't do. And as that attorney already discussed, unnecessary hardship. If the property currently supports a reasonable use, the hardship test is not met and a variance may not be granted. That's pretty simple. Next one is hardship due to unique property limitations. Unnecessary hardship must be due to unique physical limitations of the property, such as steep slopes and wetlands. None of this kind of stuff applies. No harm to public interest. A variance may not be granted which results in harm to public interest. There's already been a lot of comments made about public interest. In light of public interest, zoning boards must consider the short-term and long-term impacts of the proposal and the cumulative impacts of similar projects on the interests of the neighbors, the community, and even the state. Unnecessary hardship exists when no reasonable use can be made of the property without a variance. There is other uses for that property. I don't see how you can grant a variance. And I just want to remind you to please look at this this handbook for the Board of Appeals. It also talks about money. Money doesn't apply. Money isn't a hardship. They're here to make money. The other thing that I think is very important is that if you grant this variance, that stays with the property. If that school burns down tomorrow, that's still a PUD. A variance is forever. It doesn't go away. It'll always remain that. So if that building burns down, somebody come in and put a bigger PUD in there. Also, just a couple of personal comments. I heard about the 60% of the median income is $42,000. And I also hear about the county things. Prescott's always been a rich little town. That hospital I was born in turned into a sanitarium, and all the rich people out of there, Twin Cities, brought their undesirables. And those were people with epilepsy and just small things, nothing really important. But because we were a rich community, they brought them out and they paid a lot of money to put them there. I would show anybody that wants to. My birth certificate says St. Croix Dale Sanitarium because it was already a sanitarium. But me, Gary Most, Grant Wolf, Gary and Jerry Hildebrand were all born there in December because the Hastings Hospital wasn't built and it was too hard to get to River Falls. We're kind of proud of that. But anyway, you know, it's a rich community. Our median income in the city of Prescott is $75,000. Not the $42,000, you know? I'm retired, single, I own a home, but if I decided to sell my home, I couldn't get into that place. I make more money than that retired. You're not serving the city of Prescott residents here. These are some other people. They certainly aren't the residents of the city of Prescott. One other thing is they said it's a great area. I don't believe that's a good area. It's not close to the grocery store. It's not close to the medical clinic. And we do not have a taxi. We don't have Uber. We don't have any public transportation in this town. Put it closer, somewhere out there. There are other places to put it. Anyway, please just follow the guidelines and remember the variance is forever.
Thank you. Okay, next we have Catherine Martin.
I'll ask my questions have been answered or presented, okay?
Thank you. So next will be Eileen Birdlick.
I think I might ask too because the questions I was going to ask probably belong at the school board meeting, because I was wondering what the impact would be. I think the school, what's the money there, so I will wait until the school board meeting.
Thank you. Kate Otto.
All right, my name is Kate Otto. I live at 404 Orange Street, and I'm a neighbor to the middle school. We as a neighborhood are very concerned with how this proposal is being handled. We found out about this about 2 weeks ago, that the school is looking to rezone the middle school. We've had little information to form an opinion, and what information we do have, I'm still going to say I'm definitely against it. The lack of transparency is appalling and disturbing. The start of this process should have been community conversations, not here. I am proud to say that our community is coming together and having meetings and signing petitions and raising money for a lawyer and getting to know our neighbors. We actually have almost 500 signatures on a petition to vote against rezoning this middle school. And I bet I could get more right now. You guys have been tasked with making a key decision in our middle school, in the fate of our middle school, really. And I don't envy you at all. I can only urge you to vote against this proposal. Listen to the voice of your community. Granting these variances for the sale of the middle school will have irreversible and adverse effects on our city and district for years to come. Ask yourself, is this a win for our school district? Is this a win for our city? The only win will be for the developer, who in 10 years won't be around to deal with the repercussions. Please take these things into consideration when you vote. Look at the signatures. Look at what your community is telling you. Listen to what the lawyer is telling you. A 40-unit apartment building does not fit for the middle school.
Thank you.
Can I hand these in for you guys to look at?
That's
really zoning.
That's a petition against zoning, I believe.
Okay, next, Alicia Cassell.
That's me.
Hi, I'm Alicia Cassell. I live at 228 Elm Street. I will say most of my questions have been already asked or concerns, but I do have a few other ones. Living so close to the middle school and with only 66 spots proposed for a 40-unit complex, where do we plan on putting these additional vehicles? I do have some pictures of a typical Saturday in Prescott, and they are parked up past the Hollister Mansion, up and down Kinnickinnick Streets. And if we have additional vehicles on top of those, it's going to be crowding our streets. What do we plan to do with these vehicles in the winter months? I would say, especially on our streets, we have a few people that live that don't have garages and park on the street already, and we have a hard time with the plows getting through. With a small child that loves the park so close to the middle school, I think a lot of us are wondering what do they plan on doing with the park, or what's going to happen to our park. How will this affect our city's water and sewer system? I will say, living in an older part of town already, we have some pipe problems. We have to run our water in the winter. And we know that the sewer plant's already almost at max capacity, so adding additional units into the town, we'd like to know how that's going to impact that. How do we plan on managing the noise level that comes with 40 families moving into this small location? Is there adequate storage space for the tenants, storage units and garages, etc.? How will an increase in people affect our police and fire, EMS? Okay, that's a school question, I would assume. So I guess the list of questions could go on and on. I ask you as a concerned citizen and someone who loves the neighborhood she lives in to please vote no. If this passes, it will completely alter the makeup of our city, our neighborhoods, and school system. Our quiet neighborhood will be no more. If the city chooses to open up another apartment complex, I think that there are plenty of other places that are much more suitable to do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Thomas Oss.
I'm a 40-year resident next to the middle school. I was on the planning commission when the ordinance for the PUD was established. I don't recall whether I was there for the final vote. I became a fireman. I thought that was a conflict of interest, so I resigned from the planning commission and became a fireman. But we put a lot of time into that 3-acre ordinance, and now someone is requesting a 1/2 of that it just doesn't make it. So I'm respectfully asking you to vote no for this. They have not established the need. I would like to personally request the study that you cite for not affecting values, because I'm interested to read it. Okay.
Thank you.
That's all I have to say.
All right. Yes, and please remember to address the Zoning Board of Appeals, not the audience. Next, we have Jim Reichert.
Good evening. I have a handout for you. 5 pages. They're kind of staggered here. If you could pass them down, please. I think listening, we're forgetting something here. It seems like we got the cart in front of the horse. As a matter of fact, the cart and the horse are so far apart that I ain't even in the same county. As you'll notice in what I've handed out to you, James Reichert, 1003 Hilton Street, I'm speaking against it. Do I need to say anything more? You have a list of the school board members here. The chair of the board is here. They haven't even discussed the future of that building. Zip, nada, nothing. According to the Wisconsin legislature, school districts government is regulated by Chapter 120. If you look through the paper there, 120.12, paragraph 1, the school board has the absolute authority when it comes to property. Management, selling, buying, whatever, and that. This proposal, it seems to be an effort by the superintendent. And we don't even know when the school board, if their school board is going to decide to sell that property. We don't know if the school board decides to sell that property that they will sell it to Commonwealth. We don't know. Matter of fact, for the next 2 years, by Mr. Prescott's own words and Commonwealth's own words, that's going to be a school. That's what it's zoned for right now, a school. Why would you change that? Not knowing the future and who would come next here and want a different zoning on it, perhaps. It just seems all higgledy-piggledy. And the last sheet you have there is the enrollment in the middle school from the DPI website. Last year it shows there were 329 students in that building. 329. So it's an ongoing school. It's has a significant population of Prescott students in it. Why is the question everybody here in the audience, I think, has. And they're just not comfortable with the way this has been gone about when there are established ways that it should have been gone about. And that leads to distrust and suspicion, which you heard here from some people too. You heard the legal ramifications, you've heard other presentations in that. I'm going to present this side of it. But it is a functioning school by the superintendent's own words and by Commonwealth's own words. It's going to be a school for the next 2 years. That's what it's zoned for. Let's keep it zoned that way. So there's no question about what happens in the future. No legal entanglements, just the status quo is what I think most people are asking for. And that's a very simple question or a request. Thank you.
Thank you. Next we have Sarah Polachuk. Sorry.
Hi, Sarah Polachuk. I am a resident of the town of Oak Grove. I was previously the chair of the town of Oak Grove. I'm also an attorney, but I'm only here in my individual capacity. Just to make that real clear. I am not here to say that I want to save the middle school. I actually consider that selling it is possibly a smart move to clean up past poor decisions. But I am requesting that more discussion happens before making zoning changes to this property. Anytime that I've been part of a rezone, sitting on your side of the table, we make sure that you ask your neighbors before you rezone a property. Oftentimes that was individuals, but then in this case, we're talking about the school district. And for the school district, the neighbors are Oak Grove and Clifton. There are significant stakeholders in this. I spoke with 2 of my town board members, and this has not been brought up on a town level, despite the fact that there was an intergovernmental meeting where things were discussed, other issues were discussed. This decision has a huge impact on the taxing entities, and that can be a good decision or a bad decision. So the school board could feel free to tell me that this is a plan where all the kids fit into the other 3 schools, they can cut all the admin and staff that were hired to fund a 4th, and they can give us money back. That would be a great impact on a taxing entity. But as a serious matter, the taxing entities need to know that. I mean, Clifton is talking about, can we build the new town hall or not, because you've got all these fire and EMS expenses that just came up. There's roads to pave, which is always my, that's what I care about, right? Like in the town of Oak Grove, I care about our roads being maintained. What else do we need the government for? Give me decent roads, right? Infrastructure is what we care about. This is an infrastructure issue too. But the way that plays out and the way that the burden, how much of a tax burden people can handle is important. To address as a group beforehand. And you might say this is a variance request, and I understand it's a variance request, but this is not just your run-of-the-mill variance request. This is a variance request on a property that has significant impact on everybody, whether it's a homeowner or the people who are going to school there or the teachers or the employees around it, not to mention the neighbors. To my knowledge, the school has not shown a plan of how they intend to move forward. And they had just sold a majority of voters on the current 4-school system. And I think it would be wise of the city to require the details of a solution going forward, because the lack of transparency there creates distrust. I'm not saying I don't trust them. I'm saying the lack of transparency just creates that feeling of what's going to happen. And as a taxpayer, I'm not, like I said, I'm more concerned for taxpayers who are going, what about the other tax money? So many people, the first thing they say is, well, they're gonna have to build a new middle school at some point. That may not be true, but that's the first thing getting said everywhere. So at least get an answer to that, like where are the kids going to go? I think it's unusual to move forward doing something so drastic without any hint of a plan, and it also strikes me as irresponsible to blow up this community 2 weeks before school starts. Like how, as a school district, how do you say, hey guys, we're gonna start off on this note? It doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't make sense that if you wanna move forward with something, like I said, I'm not against selling it. Like that really might be the best way out of some of this mess. But at that point, you have to say, okay, so these are the problems that have happened in the past. We've got a new group of people here. We want to move forward in a passive way, and this is how we're going to do it, and it's going to hurt, and we have to sell the school. That might be the right answer, but at least give us that information. One thing that the first gentleman who presented said was that when he was talking about the plans, that things are likely to happen. And you and I both know with zoning, it doesn't matter what's likely to happen once the variance is there. That does not matter at all. It's completely out the window. And I don't know if higgly-piggly, Jim, is a technical term. I mean, but that's the gist of it. You don't have to make a decision tonight. And I'm not asking you to deny the variance request. I'm asking you, go talk to the people who are stakeholders and make the applicants talk to the stakeholders. Force that. Have them come do the work. You guys shouldn't have to go do their work. They should be here saying, this is what was discussed, and this is how we're going to move forward. Because it's not about 1 acre of land versus 3 acre of land in the PUD. It's really about the community. And also, on that note with Kathy, what she had said to begin with about the requirement of open space. I know that it's really easy for somebody who's not a lawyer to sit there and look at it and go, well, the park's across the street. That's open space. It's not the same. That's not the intent of the open space, and that's not the intent of the park. And if you're going to say that's within the spirit of the variance, then I think you need to look a little bit harder at at how that park is used and the intent of its use. And I've got I've got kids that go play there. I don't know if there's another 100 cars in the area all the time, if I'm going to trust myself to see my 3-year-old running between cars. And I have to be responsible for my 3-year-old. I get that. But it's going to be a lot easier to just go to Freedom Park. And that's where it'll end up. So thank you, and thanks for not cutting me off, because that's pretty amazing.
Thank you.
Do you have questions? There's no questions.
We have one more. Isaac Martin.
Almost done writing. Okay, I might have to wing it right at the end. My name is Isaac Martin. I live at 1537 River Terrace. I've been a citizen of Prescott since 1990. I'm a graduate of the school system, and I have 2 young daughters that are entering the school system, 2nd grade and kindergarten. I'm here in opposition to this permanent variance that we're looking at moving forward with exploring to convert the middle school to a multifamily residential. I would like to emphasize that I'm not against affordable housing in the city of Prescott. I do believe that there is a need for that, but I would like to more emphasize that I am opposed to this project as it's defined here tonight by the Commonwealth and at this location. Despite what we were told tonight in the PowerPoint, this is not a good location. It's not really within walking or biking distance to any amenities that are going to be needed by people that are seeking affordable housing, unless, of course, they're going to walk down the steep hills in the winter to get to No Names or Scabs, which seriously are not groceries. And I'm not even trying to be funny. I'm saying there's things that people in affordable housing are going to need, and they should have a right to be located within a close proximity to those. Being groceries, being consumable goods at the Dollar General, being jobs in our industrial park, UNFI, DMC, all things that were pointed out by the Commonwealth for this project, which should again underline the fact that this is not the best location for this project in town. And to keep it short, I'm going to urge the members of this board to either table this variance discussion until we can get more input and do some more fact-finding about how it goes. And if a tabling is not in the cards, then I urge you to vote no by your own definitions of meeting a need for a PUD in the city. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just make sure we got everybody.
Just for the record, probably should announce, someone handed some pictures.
Yeah.
So that those would be in the record.
For the record, we have some pictures that have been handed to us of the parking availability near the development. Those will be kept for the record.
Bits and pieces, I guess, Mark.
Nice. All right. As a next step, we will.
You got everybody, right?
Yes, we got everybody. Did I miss anybody that submitted a sheet?
Okay.
Because this is your opportunity, as we will be closing the public hearing, and we have to have a motion and a vote to close the public hearing, right?
Motion to close the public hearing.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, the motion to close the public hearing. So now we will deliberate amongst the zoning board of appeals.
Do you guys want a break?
Huh?
Do you want a break?
It'd be good to have a few-minute break.
You can make a motion to take a 5-minute break.
Can we make a motion for a 5-minute break, recess?
I make a motion for 5 minutes.
Okay.
Second. Aye.
Aye, all approve, aye? Okay, 5 minutes. call the meeting back to order. Please take your seats. Thank you.
I mean, when you get stuff, that's what I say when they were pronouncing my name.
I don't know who you're supposed to talk to.
Everything doesn't open session.
I'm not saying anything.
Okay, so we're going to go back.
Please take your seats.
I don't want to feel away.
Please take your seats. Done.
Want me to whistle, Jane?
Yes, yeah. Thank you. Thank you, David.
Thank you.
It worked.
It always does.
All right, we are now into the discussion phase amongst the Zoning Board of Appeals. We need to bring into consideration the criteria used by us. I mean, are we facing an unnecessary hardship in this case? We know, as cited previously, I'll read one statement. For a use variance, unnecessary hardship exists only if property shows that it could have been no reasonable use of the property without a variance. An area variance is an unnecessary hardship exists when compliance would unreasonably prevent the owner from using the property for a permitted purpose. I'm not going to read the full statement. We also need to factor in the hardship due to unique property limitations. Unnecessary hardship must be due to unique physical limitations of the property. And lastly, number 3, no harm to public interest. A variance may not be granted which results in harm to public interest. Any questions? Strong feelings, comments?
I personally have an issue with the unnecessary hardship. I don't see the unnecessary hardship. It hasn't been totally explained to this group at all. And I think there's a significant public interest involved here.
I agree.
I think the space limitation is what I have a problem with. It's only about half of what's required by the PUD.
Right, I mean, the PUD requires 3 acres. We have between 1.7 and 1.8 acres here that is available.
I agree with all of it. I think that it wasn't really been done right, and it doesn't meet any of the guidelines, and I just don't think that there's enough to say yes.
Okay, are we ready to vote?
Can we spell it out a little bit so I can get each of your reasonings behind, like the unnecessary hardship?
Mike, do you want to start on your end and state?
This is Mike Volkman. I don't believe it meets the criteria that's set forth in the variance granting procedure, specifically the size of the lot, and also the 30% open space. Did this go dead?
Yes.
Okay.
That's all I had.
Mark Redding, I also agree with number 1 there, that it doesn't meet the hardship criteria for the space limitations. And then item number 3, which is the variance, will not affect the public interest. I think it's on the contrary, it will affect public interest.
This is Julie Joke, and I agree the same with all, there's several items in the variance that this does not provide. enough answers to be able to say that it fits or meets the variance to be able to pass.
I'm Mark Jennings. Basically, I'm sitting in that same area regarding going through our three criteria regarding the unnecessary hardship, the unique features of the property, the 1.7 versus 3 acres, and obviously no harm to the public interest being a significant concern.
Okay. So can you help me just a little bit here with, so as we're defining this, we're looking at the law itself, is that how we're?
Yeah, I think maybe what, and that's based upon, all of you, based upon the evidence that was presented here today. You're really finding that they haven't met their burden on, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe, Mark Jennings, you said on any of the three factors.
Right, they have not demonstrated that this is contrary, that the fact that this is no harm to the public interest, that has not been demonstrated. Regarding the 1.7 to 3 acres, first 3 acres required for a PUD.
But that's what they're asking for the variance.
I know, they're asking for the variance for that, but that is not under, let's see, the criteria of an area variance exists when prevent the user for a permitted purpose. It's already used for a permitted purpose.
Okay. Yep. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe all the other board members, based upon the evidence presented, you did not find that they had proven the unnecessary hardship requirement?
That's correct.
And I think that.
Correct. Thank you.
I have a question. Will there be a vote now? I've heard from each one of the people. Will there be a vote? Yes, there is a variance granted or not tonight?
You guys would make that motion.
Yes, we will be making that vote motion.
Thank you.
Okay. Do we have a motion to vote?
Make the motion that we vote on this variance request.
I second the motion.
Okay. We will then start with Mike and either motion to approve or not approve, or vote to approve or not approve.
I make a motion to not approve it. That's my vote. Opposed.
I'd be opposed.
I also vote no.
I oppose as well. All have voted opposed.
Okay. So then we read that bottom part about the appeal, right?
Here, I'll do it for you.
Okay, appeal rights. This decision may be appealed by any person aggrieving by filing an action for certitoria in the Circuit Court of Pierce County within 30 days after the hearing date shown above. The city assumes no liability for and makes no warranty as to the legality of any construction commenced prior to the expiration of this 30-day period. Thank you. Motion to close the meeting? Or adjourn? Motion to adjourn?
I motion to adjourn the meeting.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Very much.